It's time for Legally Served, our first Legally Served of 2023. Welcoming in Attorney Franz Borghardt.
Good morning, folks.
Happy New Year.
Well, you know, I appreciate the sentiment. Happy New Year, but it's like already January, like what? Fourth.
What are you, like Larry David and Curb Your Enthusiasm? It's not like around the 23rd or something. Like, we're not 3 weeks in. You're still within that first week window.
I got a hot topic for you.
Oh,
I know we're going to talk
leaving
about
the rails here already.
No. I know we're going to be talking about the crash in West Baton Rouge, right?
A little bit, yeah.
I've been thinking about this a lot. Should the underlying suspects, not the officer, should they be charged with something in relation to the deaths of the girls?
Are you reading my notes? Because that's one of the questions I have for you this morning.
I've been thinking a lot about it.
That's
100 years.
Yeah,
it's a deal.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it. We'll get to him later on. But let's start with this crash over in West Baton Rouge. I mean, you are outside of the guidelines,
right,
for a high-speed pursuit or any pursuit. You are
80 plus miles per hour.
Not
using brakes.
Running a red light that had been red for 20 seconds, according to reports.
Let's be honest, though. We see officers do that. We see law enforcement officers do that all the time. It's not safe. It's terribly unsafe. But we see that happen all the time, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, is it just me, Alondra, Brian? Have you ever seen a law enforcement officer with the berries and cherries, the reds and blues on, the lights, running through a red light?
Yes.
They do it.
Yes, they do. Seen it many, many times. Not at 86 miles per hour without so much as touching the brakes.
I don't see how he didn't touch the brakes. And that's the problem, right? He wanted to catch those people. He wanted to catch that other car. So unnecessary.
The question you're asking, we'll get to second. The first question I want to ask is, how do you see District Attorney Tony Clayton proceeding here? Because he has been all, what's the term Condon uses? Eating vinegar with a fork?
So let's go down the what could this be and what is it not. We agree that it's not second-degree murder. It's not manslaughter, right? I mean, there's no intent to kill these girls, right? Okay. It would fit negligent homicide.
Right.
0 to 5 year felony in Louisiana. Basically a homicide that happens based on criminal negligence. That's an oversimplification. This would fit that category. It's a felony, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a reckless operation. Yeah, it's a careless op. Now, this is assuming, and listen, I don't represent the cop. I have no facts to support this, but this is assuming that any kind of blood draw or test done on the officer after the accident shows what? The absence of what?
Anything, toxicology reports.
Right. And I don't even know
alcohol or anything.
Yeah, I don't even know if they did a blood draw or did all that, but that is now if there's alcohol or drugs in the system, it would amp up to vehicular homicide.
Really?
But if it was just grossly negligent, it's just negligent homicide.
Okay, what's the difference between vehicular homicide and negligent homicide from a prosecutorial standpoint?
So vehicular homicide is the element is basically impairment of or the accident was caused in part or in whole by the effects of impairment. That's me summarizing the law. The bigger difference is,
does that make it less than?
No, it's up to 30 years.
Interesting.
So 0 to 5 for negligent, and then up to 30 years on vehicular. Vehicular is far worse. We normally see vehicular drunk driver that kills somebody. Okay. So that all being said, this guy's not. Let's just call it what it is. This guy is not going to jail for the rest of his life.
Right.
It's tragic. He probably is not going to be an officer anymore. But ultimately, I think that's what he gets in. He doesn't even. By the way, he doesn't have to even go to a grand jury for that. He can just charge him with negligent homicide.
Okay.
He will likely go to a grand jury, but that's what I'm predicting.
All right, here's where we're going to break. We're going to pick back up after we check news, traffic, and weather. Of course, starting off with ABC News before checking in our own local news, traffic, and then Marissa Nuzzo will have your forecast on the back end. That's where we're going to pick up. And the question of the guy who stole the car, should he be connected back to the charges that Officer Cawthron is going to be charged with? Attorney Franz Borghardt is in for Legally Served every Wednesday. I'm Brian Haldane. We'll be back after this on Talk 107.3 FM.
Yeah, you've got some things moving around
We're 30 seconds early. ABC News hits at 30:30, whereas CBS used to hit at 31.
Like when I saw her do this, I started counting in my head.
Good.
I'm trying to get better about that. That doesn't always happen.
Oh, you're good.
Now, here's a question for you, radio
He's already
folks.
been charged with negligent homicide.
What does this mean?
Stretch?
Stretch? That's what stretch means?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that's
I didn't know the answer to that.
right. And how much
I never tell Brian to stretch.
like
No, you want to give 1 minute, 2 minute. You don't. I can't imagine where. So if you're going to say stretch, you're going to give a time to go along with it.
With the yeah, okay.
Right. So the only time you'd have to worry about that is if we're meeting. Normally, if we're meeting something live, like everything else is on a clock, right?
Right.
Everything else, 30 minutes and 30 seconds after the hour, we know we're hitting that news.
Right.
1 minute after that news, we know we're hitting our local news. But the only time you'd have to stretch or something like that is if we've got the State of the Union address.
Oh, okay.
And the president's running a minute or two late.
Got it.
So, bro.
So here's the bigger question.
Scott Godan sent me a text this morning. Check this out. Everybody said I was an idiot for saying Scalise could back his way into this. Right now at the American Civics Exchange, Scalise is a 42.5% favorite. The odds Scalise 42.5%. McCarthy's down to 40. Jeff Jordan is at 12.5.
He's my underdog.
Jordan?
No. Steve Scalise.
Yeah. Well, now he's the front runner.
Yeah.
So anyway,
He's my underdog.
So here's the question: does this officer need to be charged with a crime?
I think so.
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
He
You
needs
killed
to
two
be-
high school girls, probably a third, and a boy as well.
Okay. So we agree that he needs to be charged with a crime.
Yeah.
So what needs to happen with that officer? Does he need to go to jail?
Yes.
Does he need to? He needs to go to jail.
Yes.
Okay.
And never be an
I mean,
To me, okay.
what are the factors to put somebody in jail? Severity of the crime,
Death.
death, severity of the crime, likelihood of recidivism, ability to be reformed.
You know what? I would say that there is a likelihood of recidivism just based off of, he had no business doing this in the first place. He
So-
was going to prove a point.
So here's where I'm going with this. Went way too far in the driving, right?
oh yeah.
We live in a society today where if a cop doesn't go in to an active school shooting, he gets charged with what? Negligent homicide.
Absolutely.
So if he does,
Completely different scenario.
right? No. I agree, but I'm just playing devil's advocate to start. These guys are trained in law, but they're not lawyers, right? So what you're going to start doing is these are easy, right? You don't have to drive recklessly in pursuit of somebody to this degree. You do need to go into the school to protect the kids. Those are easy extremes, right?
Right.
It's when we start moving towards the center of, did the officer act negligently? Did they not act negligently? You're giving me this look. Like
I'm processing. I'm processing.
I'm telling you, just like you in predicting, Scalise, I'm telling you that's the direction we're going. Is you're going to see more and more officers not prosecuted for misconduct, like police brutality, misconduct. You're going to see them more prosecuted for failing to do something or doing it too much.
Okay. Yes.
Just giving you stuff.
No.
to think about.
That's something we should pick up on this when we're on the air as well.
Well, we are.
Yeah. Let's share with more than just the Facebook audience.
The Facebook audience are my special people.
Wow.
Did you know that Byron told me yesterday, Byron is an ordained person able to do weddings? Just FYI.
Byron, if I ever get married, you could be my ordained minister.
I bet you Byron does an exceptionally good job.
I'm having trouble with the word negligence here.
Well, that's the crime.
I know, but he actively pursued. He's the one that punched the gas. He's the one that ran the red light.
So
These are
specific intent to kill is I wanted to kill somebody, I thought about killing them, and I kill them.
right.
Criminal negligence is not just, I was negligent and I tripped. Criminal negligence is a gross deviation from a standard of care. So we would agree that as an officer, he has a heightened standard of care, right?
Okay.
He has a heightened responsibility to be careful. What do you want him charged with?
I don't know, and that's the problem. Because, okay, if I leave a pot of boiling water on the stove and it boils over and spills onto the stovetop, I was negligent, okay? But if I continue to turn up the heat until it does so and I watch it boil over, that's not negligent, that's intentional.
So here it is.
And by hitting the gas and running the red lights, he's intentionally turning up the heat.
Allow Professor Franz here to help out.
Hold on, we're about to do weather. Actually, you got like 20 seconds.
That's okay. I'll wait. Thank you.
Like that teacher that's always like, don't worry, I'm waiting.
You know they count. Elementary schools now, they count. Like, we're going to be doing something in 3, 2, 1, and they do it repetitively. I watched it in a school in San Antonio, a basis school. Yeah. Anyways.
Time to get a look at your forecast. Here is WBRZ meteorologist Marissa Nuzzo.
There was hail.
There was hail.
I woke up in the middle of the night and I could see like lightning under my door.
It's always sunny in the ridge. It's always sunny in the ridge.
I'm going to be over your way tomorrow.
Really? What's up?
Carrie's lifting. And a biscuit. Byron's. Did you see Byron talk about my leg workout?
No,
What are we doing here?
I had to commit to it at this point.
No, but it's slow.
Too slow?
You just give me burning love every single time, and I'm happy. Like, I get that you're doing an Elvis thing.
A little less conversation, a little more action.
Don't need. Yes. How about that? 637, down to 60 degrees in downtown Baton Rouge. Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. We do Legally Served every Wednesday with attorney Franz Borghardt, and we're doing that right now. Franz, the discussion heading into break and throughout the break has completely derailed me. By the way, if you're not watching us on Facebook Live, do so, because that was just fantastic, everything that we just talked about. Let's reset. We're going to get to the other guy, the guy who stole the car. We're going to get to him in a minute. But what you brought up during the break was, I think, a bigger question here, because this is where all the gray area comes in.
So there's two different things, right? Number one, oh, that's Siri. Thank you. So there's two different things here. We want this guy prosecuted, right?
Yes, we do.
Acted grossly. We're not just talking about mere negligence,
right?
We're not talking about like leaving the faucet on and the house flooding. Right. Gross negligence, a gross deviation of standard of care.
Correct.
This is a easy one, right? The more difficult one and problematic one is we're seeing law enforcement officers being prosecuted for negligent homicide in cases of school shootings where they don't go into the fray. They fail to do something that they have a responsibility to do.
Okay, and the difference here is in that scenario, they failed to do something. In this scenario, he did something.
So if he doesn't pursue them in hot pursuit and they crash a car and kill somebody, is that officer going to get prosecuted for negligent homicide for failing to pursue and stop them?
No, because the standards are there. The standards are, he was violating the standards that were given to him.
Okay, so just playing criminal defense attorney here.
No, I understand. But
right. Is that a line for a normal officer? Is that a line that is in the real-time execution of his duties? Is that a line that is always discernible and easy to see?
Standards?
Yeah.
Like a handbook? Okay. Like it's written out in law?
So in this case...
It's written out. You are trained on this stuff?
A policy, right?
Yeah.
Standards. In this case, what is the gross deviation? Him failing to use brakes?
That's one.
The high speed? Because a high-speed pursuit is a high-speed... Hold on. High-speed pursuit is a high-speed pursuit, right? Running the red light.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to call... I'm sorry. I'm going to call BS on that one. That is
running the red light?
Officers in pursuit of a vehicle run red lights. The criminal's not going to stop. guys, by the way, I don't represent this guy. I'm just playing devil's advocate because I want you guys to think about this all the way through. What world do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a world where officers are prosecuted for gross negligence, or they're held civilly accountable, or both? Because they can be held accountable for both. These families are going to sue the sheriff's office.
Okay, so by your rationale, the officers who pulled off of the chase in Baton Rouge should be equally held accountable.
I'm saying that in this world that we're living in, we are going to start seeing men and women who are officers, just like the school shootings. We're going to start seeing those officers get prosecuted around the country for failing to do something.
Okay, we're talking about two huge extremes.
I agree with you.
These are huge
and
extremes.
at the break, I agree. And at the break, I said these are easy, right? These two examples are easy because they're two ends of the spectrum. You've got the extreme case of a school shooting where an officer should go in to protect the youth.
Right.
We have the extreme of, dude, there's no need in hot pursuit. What was the crime that these people had committed? Was it a car theft?
It's a car theft on this side of the river.
Yeah. We don't live in Grand Theft Auto.
Right.
No matter how much I want to live in the world of Grand Theft, we don't live in that. Baton Rouge is kind of dicey, but two extremes. Those are the easy cases. Don't drive that way. You have to go into the fray. The middle ground. The middle ground is what I'm concerned about.
Your Siri is on steroids this morning.
Dude, it's been drinking the 4-hour energy drink. So, the middle 5-hour. The middle ground is going to be the tough. That's going to be the gray area, right? So, like the officers that stopped. Let's say these guys, the Grand Theft Auto guys, they're high speed evading police. They crash and kill another citizen, and there are officers that could have stopped them and didn't stop them.
Right. So,
do they get prosecuted for negligent homicide? I got to tell you, I believe that the criminals in this case, and I say criminals as in the people that stole the vehicles. I don't know their names off the top of my head. Those guys are more criminally culpable in my mind, than the officer. They may all share criminal liability.
That's the question we need to get to.
Yeah.
That's the question we need to get to. So let's just go ahead and get to it right there. They stole a vehicle. They did not run into another vehicle and kill two high school girls.
Right.
And leave with Liam Dunn in critical condition.
So in Louisiana, we have a law called the felony murder doctrine. This is how you get to murder. It's a murder that happens without specific intent to kill, but a murder that happens during the conducting of a crime, a certain type of felony. Stealing the car is not going to fit into that crime, right? There may be another felony that fits into it. Now, could this be a manslaughter? Could this be a murder without intent based on committing a crime? It could be. Those guys could get charged. We don't think of manslaughter that way, but there is a provision that would allow that. I think these guys get charged with negligent homicide as well.
Okay.
Yeah, acting as principals, which is going to be difficult and problematic. But, dude, look, the question is this. There's going to be conversations at the legislature about changing laws to prevent this stuff from happening from the law enforcement angle. There should be a conversation about, okay, when you do a crime that doesn't on its face look like it's a serious crime, stealing a car, and then somebody dies as a result of you stealing a car, should we have heightened penalties?
Let's not minimize the crime of stealing a car, though.
I agree with you. Well, as someone who deals with this stuff, I'm telling you, the person who has their car stolen, it stinks.
No, I know, but a car is a huge investment. I'm saying what you're trying to paint the picture of is the difference between a property crime and a crime that physically hurts a person.
And it depends on how they stole the car. This depends on how they stole it.
Well, in this one, this was a property crime that ended up hurting a person.
Right.
It didn't have to be where someone's life was lost.
I'm just telling you that I believe that these guys that stole the vehicle, if you're going to prosecute this cop for negligent homicide, or if you're going to prosecute him for anything, I think you absolutely have to prosecute these guys for some part in the deaths of these kids.
I agree with that.
Now, to what degree? I don't know. Stealing a car, by the way, 0 to 10-year felony.
Okay.
Non-crime of violence, negligent homicide, non-crime of violence. Well, why is that relevant? If he goes to jail for 5 years, if he got convicted, and by the way, he's presumed innocent. Everything we're talking about is based on what? The reports from the news.
Right.
And as we've discussed before, the media doesn't always, quote unquote, get it right. So he's presumed innocent. I think it's important that we say that. But if he is convicted and the judge maxes him out, 5 years, no criminal record, he would be home in 6 months.
Really?
Yep. It's a non-crime of violence. He does about 25% of the...
Disgusting.
I don't know. That guy has to walk around knowing that he killed two young people for the rest of his life. Do you think that 5 years in jail is going to be more punishment than that? I don't know anything about this guy. I don't know anything about
6 months in jail is too little punishment for that.
Well, you need to get down to the legislature and tell them how you feel about calculation of Department of Correction.
We're gonna talk about that in the 8 o'clock hour with State Senator Caleb Klein-Peter is here to be sure. But right now, this is Legally Served with Attorney Franz Borghardt. All right, we're gonna break. When we come back, we might have more to discuss on this topic, but odds are, and I warn you, if you have children in the car, we're gonna be talking about Dennis Perkins next, right here on Talk 107.3 FM.
By the way, I don't represent any of these people. The cop, they've chosen not to hire one of the finest criminal defense attorneys in the universe. Humble like pie. Yes, Keith Carmen says, and Addis Police going to be on the hook for bank.
Yeah, Keith is right. The other part of this that I'm having trouble with, Franz, is the fact that it didn't happen in Addis. This wasn't his fight to begin with.
Well, they
ran to Addis
they can pursue across.
I understand, but I know I'm painting a lot of a picture that isn't there yet. I know I'm putting things in the mind of the officer who did this, but
you ever just make a mistake? I hate to sound like the soft, cuddly criminal defense attorney. You ever just make a mistake that could even be considered grossly negligent? Because, by the way, what we're talking about is, so let's just be clear. This guy did not want to kill these. We agree. This guy did not want these girls to die.
This guy didn't care.
How do you get there, though? How do you get there?
Because if he cared about the lives around him, if he cared about the lives of the people in Addis, you brake before you run a red light at 86 miles an hour. He was 2 miles an hour away from going back in time, Franz.
The way you just jumped from very serious to... Well played.
Thank you.
I've seen the Addis police cars. They're not DeLoreans. They have no...
And he was caught back on this side of the river. He turned around, he went back over, and they got him.
I just don't think it was necessary to run a red light at 86 miles per hour.
So Dara mentions, I feel like this is kind of like how they're going to charge Ethan Crumbly's parents for not taking better precautions with their guns.
Okay, that is negligent.
That's gross negligence.
Yeah.
Right. If you leave God, I'm not going to use James as an example because I love little James. You have a kid. Alondra has a kid. And that kid...
We'll kill off your kid.
Yeah. No. Alondra has a kid and it has firearms. And she fails to secure the firearms. And her kid grabs the firearm, brings it to school, and does something. Mm-hmm. Is Alondra responsible in part for the shooting because she failed to secure the firearm? Yes. Arguably, yes.
Yeah.
Because but for Alondra being grossly negligent... And some people would say that cars are more dangerous than guns. I believe cars are just as dangerous as guns.
Oh, see, Jason says the only reason he was caught is his car broke down.
Okay.
He was going to run out of gas or something.
Police chases never, by the way, police chases never play out well for the people fleeing. When's the last time you had a Dukes of Hazzard situation where the guys get away?
You don't know. Because if they get away, then it's not going to be reported.
Why did the Dukes of Hazzard use crossbows?
I don't know.
Is it because they were felons and they couldn't have guns?
I don't know.
And why didn't they just go to the Dukes of Hazzard's house and arrest them? Like they didn't know where Uncle Jesse lived? I mean, sorry. These are things I think about.
But we live in a world with unbelievable technology.
Sure.
Police pursuits, by and large, are useless.
They could have put one of those little things out in the road that flatten the tires.
A spike strip?
Spike strip. And then, of course,
Are those ready?
If they do those, and then they crash into a car with little teenagers and kill them, are the cops responsible for that? If he follows, here it is. If he follows standards,
stop right there, because you have to incorporate physics into your fictitious argument here.
Hypothetical, not fictitious. Hypothetical.
No. I would say it's fictitious because if they go over a spike strip, they're not going to continue at that rate of speed. Physically impossible.
Cars crash as a result of spike strips.
Yes, they do, but they don't kill people because it's the rate of speed.
So
and
let's modify. Let's modify my hypothetical, not fictitious argument. It's a hypothetical.
If it can't happen,
okay.
If it physically can't happen,
if he's following all the standards and policies, if he's following all the standards and policies, and he crashes his vehicle, it's not gross negligence, right?
Correct.
It's just an accident.
Absolutely.
And by the way, an accident is negligence. That's the whole definition of an accident. It's something I didn't want to have happen that happened.
Right. Now, once you're not following those policies and procedures that you go to an academy to be trained on, that's when you become at fault.
I feel like I'm living in this Les Mis world where you want to put somebody in jail for stealing a loaf of bread. Like, you want to put a guy in jail for a negligent, negligent act.
You are this close to being Skip Bayless right now. Holy crap, Franz.
Skip Bayless?
Okay, killing 2 teenage girls is the same as stealing a loaf of bread, according to the statement that just left your mouth.
I'm saying
what
that
you just said it puts those two on the same level.
What I'm saying is, if we were as fired up over murder cases as we are about this case, which is a gross negligent case, 0 to 5 years.
I was waiting for you to play the race card.
No, we're not fired up over. We're not fired up over
Say
murder
the rest
cases.
of the sentence. Because 2 white girls is why we give a damn. Say it.
It is kind of in there. It's kind of in there. Is it? Okay.
6:52 at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Got a couple minutes to go for Legally Served with attorney Franz Borghardt, and I'm giving you fair warning right now. School's back in. We're right in the height of morning drive. If your kids are in the car, these next 7.5 minutes might get gross because we got to talk about Dennis Perkins.
Ugh.
I know.
Ugh.
Former Livingston Parish Sheriff's Deputy was sentenced to 100 years in prison for a multitude of sex crimes, several involving children. Sentenced yesterday, years after, he was first arrested in 2019, along with his wife, Cynthia. They pleaded guilty to 1 count of second-degree rape, 2 counts of sexual battery of a child, 1 count of video voyeurism, 2 counts of production of child porn of children under the age of 13, and 1 count of the mingling of harmful substances. That'd be the cupcake recipe. Ugh. The couple initially faced more than 150 combined charges. The plea agreement means prosecutors and the defendant will forego the trial, guaranteeing that Perkins' young victims will not have to testify about what they went through. All sentences are to be served concurrently, except the sentence for video voyeurism, which will be served consecutively. Perkins is also required to register as a sex offender for life, but if he's got a 100-year sentence, Franz, that registration is going to apply where?
So very important. No possibility of probation, no possibility of parole.
Right.
Okay. So he's going to do 100 flat years.
Wait, just to be sure, the concurrent versus consecutive. Concurrent means at the same time.
Concurrent means everything runs together.
Yeah.
Consecutive means we're
one after another after another.
Right.
Right.
So if he's got 100 years, he's going to do flat time.
Right.
Flat time, 100 flat years.
But if it were
minus
consecutive, it would be like 500 years or whatever.
Yeah, we're haggling over.
No, I know.
So why in the world would somebody do a plea to where they're pleading to 100 years? Because he was exposed to life, L-I-F-E, letters. And I have to think that he is hopeful that maybe one day they may change a law. Maybe one day he could apply for a pardon, which he will unlikely get. And that might be a way of commuting his sentence down. Okay. Now he has to serve like 20 flat years before that could even happen. In our business, we always say letters are worse than numbers, because if you get life, L-I-F-E, if you get life, you're doing life in Louisiana. 100 years doesn't necessarily mean 100 years in Louisiana.
But this does, though, right?
I think it does. But when people ask me, why in the world would you not just roll the dice and It's because, look, they got me against the wall. They're going to convict me. My best shot long term of ever seeing the light of day again is I can say I took responsibility. I can say that I took a deal. I did this huge chunk of change, and then maybe 20, 30 years from now, if I'm still alive, I could apply for a pardon. And what governor is going to sign the Dennis Perkins pardon, I don't know. Yeah, so he's done. He's done.
Yeah.
He's going to go to jail forever. I think that leaves. Did she cut a deal?
She did. I think she got like 40 years, 41 years, something like that.
So kudos to the AG's office, Barry Milligan and the other prosecutors working on this. Kudos to them. Good resolution. And I say good resolution because it spared the victims from having to come and testify.
Yes.
And look, I for those of you who are like, man, this is a soft deal. 100 years is a long time.
So, and that's an important thing here. And I'm thinking of this through the lens of the parents of the kids who were involved. They don't have to relive this now. They can start to work on closing that chapter, work on what it's going to take to mentally get through this.
There's something about the perpetrator taking responsibility. There's something about Dennis Perkins looking at the families and saying, I did this. Now, in his colloquy, he said, I've asked Jesus for forgiveness. Jesus has forgiven me. And look, I don't want to get into a theological discussion, but there is some kind of closure that comes with him standing up and taking responsibility, them getting to make some kind of victim impact statement, which I don't know if they did or didn't. And look, these kids are traumatized.
Absolutely.
Traumatized.
Absolutely. To levels that they don't understand yet, and they won't be able to unpack until they're in adulthood. Right. By the way, you mentioned Barry Milligan. Attorney General Jeff Landry, in his press release about this, was very effusive in his praise of Barry Milligan, Erica McClellan, and Christopher Walters.
Yeah.
So I know, make sure the whole team got their props.
I apologize. I know Barry firsthand. I used to work with Barry as a colleague, and we have cases occasionally get together. But look, this was a very problematic case. Overwhelming evidence, but overwhelming evidence in a lot of different cases can be problematic. A lot of moving parts. So I think I feel comfortable saying this is a fair resolution to all sides. And to Jared Ambo's credit, Ambo has been saying for a long time now, my guy wants to plead guilty.
Yeah.
They're not negotiating. And then the AG's office was like, well, what do you want to plead to life? Want to come in and roll in and plead to life?
Well, I mean, yeah, if you're on the side of the AG's office,
I would imagine
you did have that overwhelming
I would
evidence.
imagine that the victims, I don't know this for a fact, but I would imagine the victims' families had a big say in this.
Yeah.
And probably were part of the reason this happened. I would not want to put my children through a trial. They are, as someone who's tried cases, as someone who's cross-examined victims before, it is unpleasant, and it can be just as, I'm going to say it, not to be Skip Bayless.
Skip Bayless.
Yeah, not to be Skip Bayless. Testifying as a victim can be almost in many ways as traumatic as the crime itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
absolutely. And if I can make a tie between the two cases, these kids can now get on with their lives. Maggie Dunn and Caroline Gill cannot.
Arguably, yeah.
Not arguably, they're dead.
Are these victims ever going to be able to fully get on with their lives though?
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
That's I mean, I don't know. I'll say this though. Just the difference in the way we do criminal time. Crimes of violence, sex crimes of violence are what we call flat time. So he serves 100 years, 365 times 100. He does each of those days. Negligent homicide is a non-crime of violence. As a first offender, he would do 20. It's classified as a non-crime of violence. It could it be a crime of violence? Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm just telling you legally.
Death is pretty violent.
So yeah, but
we got 30 seconds to go.
Yeah, I'm just telling you legally, it's not a crime of violence. 25% of 5 years.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and here's the thing though, and I know I'm saying this with 10 seconds to go, but these kids can get on with their lives.
Right.
In the crime where you're talking about 5 years or out in 6 months, they can't. He's attorney Franz Borghardt. We do Legally Served every week. Appreciate you, brother.